It was someone like P.T. Barnum who said, if you want to get everyone's attention, start a fight. And it's kind of true. Just look at Jerry Springer. And as one of the ways into YouTube, it's actually one of the easier entry points, is to simply ride the outrage machine. It requires very little in the way of talent, just the ability to be outraged by stuff in a way that's entertaining or pushes other people's outrage buttons. The flip side is not only is this one of the most toxic ways into YouTube, it's also one of the most forgettable, and I can imagine unfulfilling, knowing now that this is your life, this is your career. I mean, who wants to sit on their deathbed saying, I wish I'd spent more time being outraged by some of the stuff that some blue-haired feminist said, or I wish I'd done more street debates with anarchists. And like I was saying, being outraged by stuff is hardly a demanding skill set. It means that you're very replaceable. And if you're after a stable career path, you might want to look somewhere else. So I'm mostly going to talk about two girls in this video who you might not think have that much in common at first. Laci Green and Lauren Southern. Now, curiously, I had my run-ins with both of them over the years. Initially, I was in the same demographic as Laci, as part of the internet atheists. And then she became very feministy, and we had our falling out. Meanwhile, Lauren was the other way around. Initially, we were in the same anti-social justice warrior demographic. Then I saw her in real life baiting of various folks as more trying to create drama than address any real issues. Now, interestingly, that was in the days when she worked at Rebel Media, and merely a month or so after that, Laura Loomer pulled the Shakespeare in the Park stunt, basically getting up on stage, disrupting the performance and getting arrested in the process, only for it to turn out later that actually set up this Free Laura Loomer Fund because they were squashing her freedom of speech before she'd even gone to the event. Yeah, it's almost like creating drama for cash was actually their business model.
You are all Goebbels! You are all Nazis like Joseph Goebbels! This is Goebbels! You are all Goebbels! You are inciting terrorists! The blood of Steve Scalise!
Oh, and another thing about having a career based on drama is there is absolutely no ethics. Cannibalism is a perfectly valid strategy. So now both Laura Loomer and Lauren Southern hate each other with an intensity of a million exploding stars, with words like slut and whore flying around like candy, as well as who can make the nastier comments about the other one's nose job. Now, by contrast, when I actually had my tiff with Lauren Southern, it lost me some 20,000 subscribers. What did I actually do at the time? Well, at the time, as it turns out, I was working on an experiment that required my full-time attention. Internet drama could wait. And I think this is actually a really important point, is that it's useful to have that connection with reality. Both YouTube and Google's algorithms focus on showing you what you like, leading to you eventually being in the middle of these very artificial bubbles and having a very distorted view of the world. Having a real world connection where you meet real people doing real things gives you a very useful grounding to reality, a very useful anchor. Now, both Lauren and Laci were at times both more successful than me if you take views as a metric. And now both are not, mainly because they've both kind of quit. And yeah, I know YouTube views are a distinctly flaky metric, and there are toy unboxing channels that dwarf mine. There are makeup channels that have lost more subscribers in a single day than mine has gained over 10 years, only to mostly get them back a few days later, and all over some of the most mind-blowingly petty drama ever. However, I'm actually still really comfortable where I am now. I make my science-orientated videos, and I have this channel for more candid stuff. I'm comfortable with this. I enjoy it. I can do this all day. Anyway, back to the girls. Both were very young when they got into this, like in their early 20s or something. And both got popular in part from being hot girls addressing stuff. Both were arguably smart enough to look ahead and see that YouTube is a dangerous, flaky, and not a particularly pleasant career choice. Lacey started talking about doing a PhD and becoming a nurse or similar, a medical professional of some sort. Stuff that I would fully approve of. I mean, rather than a vapid 20-something-year-old dispensing advice on sex. Yeah, I'm not so sure that's going to end well. Meanwhile, Lauren Southern was a vapid 20-something-year-old pimping conspiracy theories about whatever, replacing white people, something that would eventually end up in the manifesto of some mass murder or something. Yeah. You see, the difference between YouTube now and YouTube when people like me and Lacey started is YouTube now is a very saturated market. Unless you're willing to put real effort into something, something that'll make you shine above the rest. Eventually, you'll just be replaced by someone better than yourself. An especially dangerous place to be if part of your market appeal is being young and handsome or young and pretty. I mean, for me, this was clearly never a point in that I almost never appear on camera, and I just like to weave as much science into my sciencey videos as possible. But let's just say that your content is easy to make. It's only a matter of time before someone younger and prettier than you comes along and makes essentially the same content. A smart girl might see that coming. I mean, in 5 years' time, it will just be Britney Spears version 2.0, 3.0, whatever. Now, finding thoughtful discussion on social media is pretty challenging. They're almost always drowned out by that start a fight, feminism is cancer, you're worse than Hitler, I wouldn't even rape you type outrage merchants. However, being the outrage merchant is also a dangerous line to lead if that's your career choice. I mean, few would argue that YouTube should have no rules whatsoever, or that everything should be monetizable. It's more a question of where should the line be. And like it or not, some of these things are genuinely grey. They don't easily categorize into black and white. Well, black and white is an easier selling point for the outrage machine. Anyway, therein lies the problem. If you want to be a successful outrage merchant, you need to dance as close to the edge as possible, as it's really the only way you're going to compete in a saturated market. And then you come to the point when winning and attrition become the same thing. Now, sure, we can have a discussion about how unfair YouTube is in their demonetization, but we got to be honest, a lot of this is some pretty grey areas, something that few would actually like to admit. I mean, it's always been the advertiser's choice as to where they put their adverts. Advertisers are forever pulling ads or whatever off stuff like Fox News when they think it's become too toxic. Now, for YouTube is just the middleman in all of this. They run the platform and decide where the adverts are going to be shown. And if your media is toxic enough, so toxic that it's going to make it hard for YouTube to get advertisers, they're probably not going to want to run ads on your stuff. So is it really that YouTube has a political bias, or are they just whacking a few who are dancing a little close to the edge? I don't know if there's a name for it now. Edgelord or something. Anyway, reality check. YouTube is a company, a money-making venture. The only bias, that's the only bias that they have. If you want to look at a smart, money-making, billion-dollar conglomerate and come to the conclusion that, money's not actually that important to them, this highly successful corporation doesn't do that. Its goal is pushing some communist, cultural, Marxist, Silicon Valley bias. Well, it's very Alex Jonesy. But, if you do a little Occam's razor on it, it's a company. They want to make money. That's their bottom line. And sure, they get grief from the other side as well, from the leftists. I mean, I recently saw this piece from Samantha Bee railing against YouTube's algorithm for helping pedos find footage of kids in playgrounds. To which the answer is, well, duh. It's an algorithm. It's designed to optimize people's watch time. It doesn't know who you are or what you like. It just knows historically if you liked A, B, and C, you're likely to like D. So it's going to put D up there to keep you watching. It's an algorithm. It's amoral. It's just as happy to show you videos of a radical Islamic preacher as a child dancing in a playground. If that's what's needed to keep you watching, to keep them earning. Now, I mean, should you even want to try and address this? I mean, because if you think about it, the only way you can do that is to ask YouTube to design an algorithm to tell you what you should be watching rather than what you want to watch. Which, to be honest, is far more 1984-ish than anything else. I mean, and that fact alone just sort of blows this whole cultural Marxist Silicon Valley anti-right-wing conspiracy thing out of the water. I mean, the fact that they didn't do that sort of stuff shows that they're basically in it for the money. And if I look through historically the videos of mine that have been demonetized, if there was some left-wing bias, it would just be the anti-social justice warrior, the anti-religion. All those videos would be demonetized. And none of the videos that I made against, I don't know, Trump or Brexit, all those leftist videos would be fine. But they're not. They get demonetized just as easily as all the other stuff. I mean, to me, it seems that YouTube is trying to, how shall we say, make YouTube a little less outrage merchant based. You know, that this is good for pushing some short-term buttons, but eventually it doesn't end well. Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, the flip side is that online people end up in these internet bubbles that they're very comfortable in, because that's what YouTube and Google surround them with, is with media that they like to watch. But now you add this to folks like Lauren Southern. If you want to be successful, you've always got to be pulling some drama stunt to keep in the public eye, skirting the edge of what's allowed and what's not. Now, I hadn't actually paid that much attention to Lauren's arc here until someone clued me in that she was quitting. Apparently, she'd been off making some film, some documentary called Borderless, which had throwbacks to the, alt-right, white genocide, great replacement type stuff. Now, I only watched the recap at the end of the video, where she comes to the conclusion that actually, no, these people really aren't evil, trying to perpetrate some grand conspiracy to destroy Europe or something.
This is all so much more gray than I ever could have imagined. Are these people invaders? Are they intent on destroying the Western world? No.
But apparently the human traffickers here were the boogeymen or something. But the bottom line was the refugees weren't evil. And I was like, well, it took you a while, but you think? I mean, the last time I thought of making a video about Lauren Southern was way back when she was doing the stuff with the boat people coming over from Libya. And she was getting in the way of the Coast Guard rescuing people or coming into port or something like that, firing flares or fireworks or something, I don't know. Some stunt that eventually got a pull from Patreon, which is actually a pretty grey area, but arguably justifiable. And at the time, I looked at the stats, for crossing the Mediterranean, and you had about a 1% chance of dying making that crossing. It was non-zero, but not insignificant either. I mean, you take those risks daily, in about 3 months, you're going to be dead. Anyway, why were people willing to take this gamble? Well, it was because Libya as a state had collapsed. And one of the reasons it had collapsed as a state, to the point where there was actually instances of slavery there, is it used to be under a dictatorship with Gaddafi. But of course, they were bombed, part of an uprising by, I forget exactly who it was, but it was Western powers of one sort or another. I'm pretty sure the EU was, up for sending some bombers down there to stop Gaddafi from slaughtering people. But by doing that, of course, they essentially destroyed Gaddafi and precipitated the whole failed state thing. Anyway, when you actually taken the part in the destruction of somebody else's state, getting all preachy about, yeah, but you shouldn't break the law by illegally coming in to Europe when we took part in the destruction of your country. That seems pretty unreasonable. Whatever. At the end of it, Lauren comes to the conclusion that these people weren't actually evil, and they weren't actually doing that much different from what you would do in their situation.
A lot of them are like you and me, just born in very unfortunate countries with unfortunate situations.
It was kind of cute to see this girl go out into the wide world and come to the conclusion that most of us had known all along. I mean, points out of 10 for trying, but like I was saying, vapid 20-something-year-old. But Lauren appears to at least see that the only future here would be to ride the soul-sapping drama train. Because once you get on it, that's your audience. Jerry Springer is your audience, and you have to perform for them. And she laments in her farewell blog, "At times, the endless, soul-sapping noise of the insatiable digital mob leaves no room for quiet, for reflection, for love, for understanding, for discussion, for just being." But then ties up with, whatever the Canada legal authority might still mistakenly think, I'm not a man. Yes, that's because you fed the soul-sapping drama train insatiable digital mob by illegally changing your gender with a drama stunt. Now, sure, it was great for shits and giggles and epic fun. It really was. It was great. Till you realise that actually there might be a reason that this law was there, and it wasn't for something as trivial as people who wanted to identify as attack helicopters, but let's say for the sake of argument, someone who is genuinely born with both sets of genitals or something, and they're written up on their birth certificate as a boy or a girl, and they get to adulthood, and that's clearly not how they actually feel. And that's why these sorts of laws were in place. Now, can they be abused by some crazy blue-haired feminists? Sure. Can they be abused for a drama stunt? Sure. But what the hell does that do other than add to the soul-sapping noise of an insatiable digital mob leaving no room for quiet, for reflection, for love, for understanding, for discussion? However, both she and Lacey seem to have clued into, I recognise that I still have contributions to make. I have on-ground experience with many of the issues I've tackled. I'd very much like to pair that with an academic lens. Well, good for you, Lauren, if you want to take a more academic view of all this. Because the other path open to her would have been the one taken by Laura Loomer, basically becoming an unrepentant drama queen to the point where you're kicked off absolutely everywhere, to the point where you end up at InfoWars selling soy-filled brain pills. Which was, curiously, the fate of Milo Yiannopoulos, except if you believe the news articles, he's also a couple of $1 million in debt. Which all kind of ties up nicely, because Milo then drops this huge tell-all story about Lauren sleeping with people for ghostwriting, and an interesting throwback to Zoe Quinn. Or that she preached the trad thought lifestyle while actually being, normal? And that her colleagues lived some champagne-fueled life on the donors' expenses while pulling off low-level scams. An interesting throwback to Sarkeesian, if it's true. Well, is any of it true? Well, who knows? There's a lot of he said, she said type stuff here. Not that it really matters anyway, because Lauren's YouTube, less than a month after she's quit, is getting less than 10,000 hits per day, which is not far off what Lacey's getting. I mean, like I was saying, the drama train is one of the most forgettable things that you can do on YouTube. And as for Lauren and Lacey, who knows, but if they're really up for some more higher education, good on ya, and I wish you good fortune in the wars to come.